on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we are showing our excitement for this series from MGM Plus and we've got one of the stars, Angela Moore. Angela, welcome to the show, my love.
Thank you so much. Did you know that I was actually born in London, England?
No. Wow.
Yes.
And now you're living it up is it Vancouver that you're at now?
Yes, I'm in Vancouver,
Oh.
more specifically North Vancouver, the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coast Salish lands.
Oh, do you know what? I would give up London and the UK any day to move over to Vancouver, to Canada, anywhere, to be fair. So I think you've got the good end of the stick there. What age did you leave London then? So you were born in London and you moved.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've been around quite a few places: New York, Vancouver. What age did you actually leave London to go over the pond, as they say?
I was 2 years old, and back in those days, they have a passport. My mother was in it, and I was on her knee.
Oh,
Yeah,
bless you.
yeah,
Bless you. And the rest
yeah,
is history. But you know what? This
yeah.
show is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to talk about From very, very shortly. I was late to the party. I actually didn't watch it right from the beginning. And it was one of those shows I saw advertised online so many times. And I thought, do you know
Mhm.
what? I need to give this show a go. And literally, I watched season 1 and I was hooked. Season 2, oh my days. My wife said that every time we watched an episode, she went to sleep and she dreamt about the show. She was disturbed as
Oh
well.
no.
She would wake up and she was just so asking so many questions. So, for her to give it a seal of approval, because she gets a bit tired about the shows I watch. It's either got a president in it, it's either got someone being kidnapped, but this show is on another level, and we've got quite a few of the cast coming onto the show in the next coming weeks. So before
Fabulous.
we talk about the show, I want to find out a bit about you, Angela. So, what got you into this crazy industry of acting? Why acting and not a normal 9 to 5 job?
Yeah, I think my parents are probably still asking them that same question. Um, I I started to do a lot of writing in high school, and I helped create a show, and I got really hooked on storytelling on stage, and I fell in love with it. And then I also saw a performance by Cicely Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman on television, and she rocked my world. The way she's just sort of transformed herself and told that story of Miss Jane Pittman over, like, I think it was almost 100 years. Um, it was incredible to me, and I was transfixed by that performance. And I thought, that's what I want to do. Yeah.
I've actually
And
seen
that's how I kind of
pictures of
started.
her in that, and the makeup and the transformations look fantastic. And
Mm.
it's one of those films that I think that I would actually really enjoy. I know there's a lot of people out there that thought that. Correct me if I'm wrong. That thought it was actually based on a true story, but apparently the book was actually fiction. Am I right in saying that?
Mhm.
Um,
I,
but
I I believe so. I
but
believe
yeah,
so.
so
But I
definitely
mean,
that is a
it's
list.
also kind of, it almost doesn't really matter because
Hmm.
the way she embodied the character, I'm sure it was the sort of the experiences and the hopes and the dreams and the trials of many real life um, African Americans who were slaves. So,
Definitely,
um,
definitely, and I
yeah,
suppose it is
yeah.
is more importantly about the story and the message, and
Hmm.
and the type of storytelling, because I think that we need more of that on our TV. I know that is it Emancipation that was on Apple TV that was absolutely stunning and heartbreaking to watch at the same time. And I think stories like that, there's so many stories yet to be told about these true, to life people that went through such hardship. I mean, kids today wouldn't even know. So we need to be keeping that alive and keeping that message going. So let's talk about your IMDb, because I've got to say it is an impressive list on IMDb Pro that I've been looking at, and literally you have starred in so many great projects, from Supergirl
Mhm,
as the principal. I've got to say, in that you were
mhm.
quite stern, and I personally think that if I had to go in front of you as the principal at that school, I think I'll be slightly scared. And then
Mm,
Supernatural and so many other
mhm.
projects. Was there a point in your career that there was a moment that cemented that decision in acting, that actually you thought to yourself, do you know what, I'm actually really good at this, and I'm glad that I've chose this as my life's profession.
I don't know if there was any sort of one particular moment. I think I trained in the theater. And so I just really enjoyed the whole process of being part of a story. And I just persevered, frankly. I just sort of hung in there. I don't know why or how, but sometimes a dear friend of mine, Barbara Deutsch, talked about this pilot light that a lot of artists have in their hearts. And that pilot light for me kind of never went out. It might have dimmed every now and again, but it never truly went out. And so that kind of gave me the courage to sort of persevere throughout my career, even though it might not have been as active as I would have liked, or more successful earlier on or whatever. But I just really stuck with it. I always did theater, and I would do temp jobs to support myself. So I became quite a good secretary. uh, did a lot of administration work, and I would take off early and run to auditions and stuff like that. So there was quite a bit of sacrifices along the way. So I really did have to give up sort of a stable, secure life in order to pursue my dreams. And I just really just hung in there. And I just really, really enjoy working with creative people, and bringing characters to life. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned secure, because the business is definitely not like a secure business, because
No.
you're continuously auditioning, and when you get a role, you don't know how long it's going to last for. You talked about the theatre there, because being on theatre, being on stage is a completely different beast in itself, in the
Yes.
way of what you get from being on stage. And I used to do that as a profession as well many moons ago. What
Oh.
is it? What is it that you get from being behind, well, in front of the camera, that you don't get being on stage in the theater, and vice versa?
Hmm. Um, what I loved about theater was the immediacy. I really enjoyed the energy exchange between the audience and the actors on stage. When there was a certain moment that was sort of recreated, and you could hear maybe a collective gasp, or you could see people's attention. They're just sort of sitting really still, and they're really drawn into the story, or they're laughing and they're responding in a way, and that's immediate, right? You can get that
Yeah.
right away. If they're bored, if they're agitated, if they don't like something, if they love something, right? You get that hit right away. And there's no do-overs. So if you make a mistake, well, you just make a mistake and you just carry on the best as you can. Most of the time, no one ever noticed you dropping a line or a cue or anything like that, right? With film and TV, I had to learn to really draw my energy down. I'm a very uh, sort of a brilliant person. I, move my hands around a lot, and have a lot of energy sometimes. And so I had to learn to really just bring that in, bring my energy down, and sort of put it through my eyes. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I just had to really settle myself. I didn't have to emote as hard, so to speak. Um, I didn't, because I wasn't trying to reach, I'm not trying to reach a back row, right? At the back
Yeah.
of the theater and project, right? So I can just sort of, be quiet and be still and be calm. And even something like thinking, um, even thinking about lunch will translate on camera, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, so sometimes I I may seem like, I don't look that sort of, upset or engaged, but my mind is kind of really going, and that's sort of me in real life. And but sometimes on camera, you might have to adjust that a little bit so it's sort of read a little bit easier, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just have to trust yourself.
So
Yeah,
would you
so those are
say
the
that?
kind of the main differences.
So would you say that being in front of the camera can sometimes be more difficult from an actor's point of view in the way of character acting, because on stage you've got that period of time from start to finish when you're completely in
Mhm.
character. You live in that magic moment for 2-3 hours, but then in front of the camera there's going to be action cut. So there's going to be periods
Mhm.
where, like, you're back as Angela, and then you're back as your character on From. I know there's actors out there that are method, that literally when they say cut they
Mhm.
stay in character.
Yes.
And there's actors like Anthony Hopkins that is very well renowned in the way of a click of a finger he can drop into character in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
So would you say that it's a lot harder, you know, to act in front of the camera compared to, say, being on stage?
I think it's a lot harder, frankly, because just as you said, it's something you have to sustain throughout all the interruptions, and there's a lot of distractions. Um, in between the cuts. There's people doing touch makeups on you and talking to you, and maybe there's a joke going on beside you, that sort of thing. Most of the time, if it's something that really requires my own particular focus, then I just will stay quiet and just sort of contain that energy. It depends on what I'm doing. And if it's not that heavy a scene, then I can sort of break in and out of character, at will. But most of the time, I just try and reserve my energy as much as I possibly can, and just try and direct that towards, what I need to do. And often, just before we're getting ready to start going, that's when the gears in my head will just be like, okay, what's the moment before? What are you doing? What's the energy? What are the stakes? Where are you now? Right before they call action, and that's basically technique. Yeah.
And we'll talk about between shoots from in a moment. But one more question before
Mhm.
we talk about this epic show. When starting out, did you have a plan in place in what you wanted to achieve? Like one of those boards of people that you wanted to work with, and
Mm,
projects that you wanted to work on. And has that changed over the years?
I absolutely did not have a plan. I really didn't have a plan. I don't think I had a mentor, so to speak. I didn't have anyone to sort of really show me the way. No one in my family was pursuing this type of thing. Basically, they're kind of actively, discouraging it. And so I didn't really have anyone to look up to in the industry. I started in Toronto, and occasionally I might see somebody that I thought, oh, okay, but I had no contact with them because I was also hustling and working, right?
Hmm.
Trying to make a living to pay, the bills. So that left very little time to kind of, take acting classes full time or whatever. And also, I didn't have a lot of examples of Black women in the industry
Mm.
back then that I could really go to and confide in. There weren't that many roles available to us, sad to say. So there weren't. Um, there weren't very many. There was a couple, right? And, you try to make friends and stuff like that. But then I think sometimes there's also an element, if they're closer in age, it becomes competitive, right? Because
Mm.
there was only a finite amount of roles that we could go out for. So if you were trying to make friends with someone in your same category, it became a little bit problematic. Um, there was a woman in Toronto who eventually became the president of ACTRA Toronto, Sandy Ross, and I really looked up to her. And but we didn't spend a whole lot of time together. I would have loved to have asked her more questions about exactly what is the plan? What do I do? Where do I go from here? So I kind of just had to figure it out on my own. So did I have a plan? No. I didn't know what my career would look like. I think I just went from one thing to the next and hoped it, the opportunities would become better. Um, Eventually they did. Um, and so, here we are today. Yeah.
And here we are today, and let's talk about this epic show because literally, I think a lot will agree. It's one of these shows that you start an episode and you don't want it to end, and you've got a million and one questions. So, in a nutshell, if you'd like to tell all the lovely viewers whom you play and a bit about the show, if you can describe it, because do you know what? I've tried to describe this show to so many friends, and it's one of those things that you know it's really hard to describe. It's proper genre bending. It really is. But if you can, tell the viewers who you are in the show and a bit about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about the show. Okay. So the show takes place in this mysterious town. People have found themselves arriving in this town, but they cannot leave, no matter what they do. And at night, monsters that look like real people come out and kill them if they were caught sort of outside after dark. So that's basically the premise of the show. And so I come on in season two. I play Bakta, who is a bus driver, and she's driving her bus, and there's a big kerfuffle on the bus with these characters, and one of them, Elgin, throws up, and I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. So see this tree in the road. I go around it. I come into this town, thinking I'll just make a little side trip here to clean up. We'll have a little break, and then we'll get everyone back on the bus, and we'll continue on to our destination. And then she is confronted by Donna, played by the amazing Liz Saunders, who tells her that people have to get inside. It's going to be dark soon. And I'm like, get out of my way. I need to get going. And she ends up um, blowing out the tire of my truck. This is already on air, season two, so that's not a spoiler or anything. And of course, we're all terrified of all this stuff that's going on. We run inside, and then that night we hear the screams as some of our bus passengers are being slaughtered. And so that is how I arrive in town, stuck, cannot leave, trying to sort of process what's going on. What's the real danger? What do I do now? What is my purpose now? Um, how do we get along in this town that we can't get out of?
Do you know what I've got to say? I'm sure I'm not the only one, but when your bus arrives in the town and Donna is trying her best, me and my wife were screaming at the TV. It's like, just go inside. You don't understand. And I just felt so sorry for your character and the other passengers, because we knew as viewers
Mm,
what was going to go down, but obviously it's
right.
going to confuse everyone. The one thing I like about this show is how it's written, because there's no small characters. Every character in this show is so important as the next one, which I think is fantastic. I mean, the story arcs, it just keeps you so interested and so engaged. What would you say? Because this show has been getting traction from season one to season two, and
Mm.
now season three. What do you think is the magic source of this show? Why is this show doing so well? I mean, why is it resonating with so many viewers?
Well, first of all, it's the amazing talent of our cast. It's led by Harold Perrineau, who plays Sheriff Boyd. And he's the one that walks around town with a bell, ringing and alerting everyone to the fact that it's going to be dark soon and they need to be inside, right? And he's gone through a lot. He's lost his wife, uh, becomes a bit, his relationship with his son becomes sort of strained a little bit. And he's trying to find a way out as well. He's trying to help people to survive this experience and to not be broken of all the strange, incredible things that happen. It's not even just the monsters that they have to contend with,
Mm,
it's sort of the mental deterioration that happens with a lot of the characters, right? As they try and just see if they can answer some of the questions. There's the lights go on, but there's no source of power.
mm.
The water runs. from the sink, but there's no source of, a well. There's sort of these strange happenings that go on with some of the characters, and they're just trying to find their way. So with the arriving people like Jade trying to find out what's going on in this town, and uh, Christy, trying to keep everyone healthy and together, and um, all these different characters as they sort of meet, um, and some of them meet again in season two. They become reunited. It's all these stories of love and survival. What I think, for me, what people find in the show that resonates with them, I think comes out of the experience from our experience from COVID,
Mm,
right? We were, all of a sudden, we had this thing and no one could go outside. We didn't know what was going on. Um, People were dying,
mm.
right? People were dying. Loved ones were dying, and we didn't know how we were going to survive at a certain point. And so maybe we were inside with our family. Maybe we were someone that we just met, a couple of months ago, and we decided to quarantine with them. How do we survive this catastrophe, right? That's going on around us. How do we survive? And I think it's in that survival that people really are drawn to. It's the family of our origin and the family that we make with community as we try and work together to survive a very unusual circumstance is something that really rings true with people.
Definitely, and the show is a lot about humanity and how
Mm,
everyone gets on with each other, and I love how like the story arc has changed with certain characters on how they are, well, how they were in season one compared to now season two
mhm.
and season three. So how did this project come along your desk? I mean, how was it presented to you? And being coming into season two, was that quite daunting for you as well? Because it was already established.
Mm. I had never seen it, right? Because in Canada, we don't get MGM Plus, the streamer. So I was unaware of the show. I didn't
That's
know anything
crazy.
about it. And so it was presented to me as an audition. And I get a lot of auditions, right? So to me, I'm like, okay, just another audition. But this one was a Zoom. And since COVID, actors have been doing their auditions through self tape and Zoom. But in Vancouver, the Zoom was fairly exceptional. Usually you just have to tape it home and send it off. And you never heard about anything until maybe you got the gig, right? And so this came to me as a Zoom. Um, I think it was just one scene, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Bakta, what kind of name is that, right? So I couldn't see from, so I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't have it like I couldn't access it here. So I just saw a trailer, I think, that was on YouTube. So that's all I knew about it. And then I had a Zoom audition and I got to meet Jack Bender. And I just kind of did my best, right? I was like, okay, well, I'll do my thing. You know, and I actually didn't think about it again after that. I was like, okay, that was my shot at it. And then I went on vacation with my family to Hawaii, went to Maui, and it's been a long time since we've been on vacation, so I was, really excited to go away. And even my agent was like, "Oh, so you're going on vacation, And I'm like, "Oh, well, whatever. I'm probably not gonna get this. I'm gonna go, right? What am I gonna do? It's been forever since we've been away." About the third day, the third morning there, I get a call from my agent. Um, you need to, I think it was like Saturday. You need to be in Halifax by Monday. I'm like, pardon me? I was absolutely shocked. I didn't have a callback. I had no inkling of when it was starting. I literally just did the audition, did my best, and put it out of my mind, and sort of just went on with the rest of my life. And so I had to figure out how to get on a plane that day from Maui, flew back to North Vancouver, packed a bag, and got on a plane and was in Halifax for a reshoot on the Monday.
Wow. So you know
There you
what
go.
the key is now every time you audition for something, book a holiday, and then 3 days into it, just expect that phone call because That is
Yeah,
destiny right there. You mentioned Halifax, Nova Scotia, and
mhm,
apart from the town, it looks a beautiful place. What is it
it
like
is.
filming there? What's the environment like? Because am I right in saying that it was a purpose built a town there that used
Yes.
to, I think, they used to put up people for a army base nearby, or a radar base. I read somewhere,
Yeah.
but what was it like filming there? Because it looks beautiful. I mean, was there any wildlife that you saw that was quite dangerous? Because in the UK, the most dangerous thing we've got here is hedgehogs. That's it. But I know that in Vancouver and in Canada, along those stretches, you have things called bears, and
Yeah.
and big animals. I mean, what was it like working in those environments?
Well, first of all, there weren't any bears there.
Good.
Actually, the bears occurred to me. I live in North Vancouver, so at the time I was living in a house, and frankly, bears were a common occurrence in our backyard.
Wow.
So it isn't something that we kind of get used to it, right? Our backyard was like a thoroughfare, especially since COVID. So seeing bears in the neighborhood is quite usual. We just leave them alone, and they go about their business, right? So in Halifax, which is a beautiful city in Nova Scotia, it's close to the water, so you have the waterfront is right there. The set is built, you are correct, at a former radar installation. It's higher up, it's about 40 minutes outside of town, uh, in a town called Beaverbank. So don't all rush there, okay? It's a very sort of small,
Oh no, we're not going
sort
to
of a
rush
suburb
there and
outside
take
of
bits
town.
of the
Yeah,
houses
don't.
and take
I,
take.
I, I don't think you want to go to Beaverbank. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a beautiful place, but it's
Who
a very
knows? Who
small
knows?
40-minute
You
drive.
might go there but never leave. So why would
That's
anyone want to go
true.
there? You know.
It's true, but they have beautiful lakes out there. But this place was built, and so it isn't a place that you can access. So don't bother trying to find get in. They have gates up, right? Um, the only thing that we had to worry about there was probably ticks,
Mm.
but no wildlife. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you can't see it from the road or anything like that. You'd have to know exactly where to go. Um, and yeah, so Halifax is a fantastic city to visit. It's full of, rich history, African Canadian history, naval history. They have survivors of not survivors, people who, died from the Titanic. They're buried in various, cemeteries in Halifax. And yeah, there's some great stories out of Halifax. So, Google it. It's a great city to visit.
Do you
Yeah.
know what? Is Canada's one places I've always want to go to. I've been all over America. I've just come back not long, got back from Chicago, and Canada's always been one of the places I've wanted to go but never had a chance. So talking about scripts and the story, I've
Mhm.
got to say the fan base for this show is incredible, to the point
Yeah.
I would say
The
obsessive.
Frumily.
Yeah, they are literally. There are groups on Facebook that have got hundreds of thousands of people, in them, and literally on a daily basis, they're coming out with theories and what's going on. And the latest one is something to do with the priest, from episode 1, season 3, which I won't spoil for
Mhm.
anyone. But when you get the scripts, do they actually explain things to you? I'm not going to ask you to divulge anything, because I find it quite interesting, and that's what keeps shows alive, and that's just a testament to the story and the writers. But when you get the scripts, do they actually explain all the theories to you, or are you left in the dark as well?
No, we have no idea. Um, I'm not in every episode, but I still get the scripts, and so because I want to read, find out what's going on, right? So I'm reading it, and so I'm just as anxious as everybody else to find out what's going to be happening, right? So we're all just waiting for our scripts to come through, and then we read them, and you're like, okay, all right, what's going on? So no, do they explain stuff? No, absolutely not. We find out when, we just get them in an email, and we're like, oh my, really? Oh, so sometimes, on occasion, I've had to ask the writer, uh, so exactly what happened? I wasn't quite sure. And asked or the castmates. So did that mean? Yeah. So no, we don't know.
I mean, the great thing
Mm-mm.
about the show, it can go in any direction, which I think is great because it leaves you guessing about so many things. And a lot of the theories at the moment is about Fatima, which I cannot wait because I've got the actress
Mm.
on tomorrow, live on the
Oh,
show.
Pega! She's
So yeah,
beautiful and so talented. Fierce. Yeah, her character is very
so we're going to
fierce.
get
Yeah.
down to these theories and try and see if some are true or some are completely off the mark. Um, but yeah, I mean, this show is just absolutely amazing. I mean, your character with season 3, please say we're going to
Mm.
see her kick some backside because
Mhm.
I've got a feeling. I've got a feeling that she's someone not to be messed about with. She may have lost a bus, but I'm sure that she hasn't lost everything, and she wants to get back to family, friends, and
Mhm.
I think that she is a force to be reckoned with. So, what have we got to look forward to with your character this season, in a nutshell, without spoiling anything?
Um, well, I think you'll see a different side of her that you haven't seen so far. So that was kind of also a surprise to me as well, right? I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. We're taking her in sort of a more nurturing side. I think Bakta, once she's sort of lost her boss, like her number one job, when she arrived was just basically to get out, right? Like a lot of the fans were like, "Oh, she's not very pleasant," right? But in my mind, Bakta was like, "This is my last ride."
Yeah.
Right? I got my degree. I just making some extra money to go on vacation. I'd worked really hard. I'm a survivor, and I just want to go home. I want to get back to my son. Right? That's what was going through my head. Even though people were like, "Oh my God, she's so unpleasant," but in her mind, she's like, "We need to get these people where they need to be going, and I'm going to get on with the rest of my life. This is the last ride." And now that she's realized, okay, well, that's not going to be happening. Um, she's just trying to find her purpose. And I think that she's starting to find her purpose in season 3.
And I can't wait to see more of her because she's real. You know what I mean? She's sort of
Mm.
when you say that some people might not thought of her as pleasant, she's real. I mean, if you ended up in a town where you can't get out of and you want to get home, I mean, you would be unpleasant at times. Um,
Yeah.
do you think this show is going to go on a bit like the series Lost? Because I've got a feeling that there are going to be plenty of seasons within. I don't want to jinx it, but I've got a feeling that this show could go on for quite a few seasons. And I know that I think the executive producer worked on Lost along with Harold, and it's giving
Mhm.
Lost vibes where it's going to be epic, and it is epic, but it's going to get better and better and better. Can you see this show going on for many seasons to come?
Well, I can. I would love it for it to go on as many seasons as the fans want it. I'd love to see the show continue. I think there's a lot going on there, but we also have posed a lot of questions, right?
Mm.
In seasons 1 and 2. And I think the fans, our wonderful fans, are demanding some answers. So hopefully in season 3, they're going to get some answers and to find out, what's going on, and how the townspeople are going to sort of continue to be challenged, not only by the monsters, but as to uh, the purpose of these monsters, the purpose of this town,
Mm.
or there's a lot of theories like, is it real? Um, or is it like a conspiracy? Is it some sort of social experiment? These are the things that I think the fans are asking all of these questions. Um, and I actually have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, one that, as Bakta, I mean, this is her reality, right? So you have to adapt.
Oh,
Once you're in a situation, as we found out globally, you just have to adapt, and figure out how you're going to get through something, right? So that you can return home. Everybody wants to go home, right? In the show. Um, do they make it? Do they not? I don't know.
oh, Angela,
Stay tuned. Find out.
you were making me wanting to leave this interview in a moment and get those screeners up from MGM Plus and watch and binge all night.
Oh,
But I want to enjoy it.
don't binge. Don't binge. Honestly take your time, and I think you're going to find a lot of really shocking surprises, a lot of new challenges, um, uh, and I think your heart's really actually going to be touched.
Oh, don't say that. I cry at a drop of a hat. Honestly, I am such, honestly, I'm a modern man. I don't mind to admit it, but I cry so easily because I get so involved with what's going on screen. I get invested with characters and so if anything happens like that, I might, oh, I might have the tissues ready. But I like the fact that when you watch it weekly, it makes you think then for a week about that episode, and it makes you
Mm.
question things, which is great. Just two more questions before we bid our farewells. With the fan base being so great, do you think there may be a time when we could get a from convention where you could meet fans face to
Oh,
face? Would you be up for that? Would that potentially could happen in the future? Because I think that would be incredible to get all the cast together at a convention. And I know the fans would absolutely go crazy over it.
well, they've already had some of the main actors, or some of the core actors at San Diego at Comic Con already this year. So that has happened already. Um, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, though, right? I mean, I know our Fromily fans are devoted. They're really excited. They love the romance. They love the mystery. They love all the interactions between the townspeople. They love the horror. They love all the sort of mysteries that have, been presented.
Mm,
They love the characters, right? I love the characters. I love the actors. It is such a joy to go to work with people that you really love and admire. Everybody has been terrifically supportive of one another in this whole process because, most of us are, almost all of us are away from home,
mm,
right, when we shoot. So we just have ourselves. And I believe the series started during COVID. There's a lot of restrictions in Nova Scotia, and they couldn't leave. So we had each other to rely upon, right? So that the bond that the characters have with their respective characters and the love stories, that affection is quite real, right?
oh,
And so we'd love to be able to, share that with fans in the future, because it's just such a joy to be with such a terrifically talented cast, and they're so dedicated to their craft. And I learned so much from working with all of them, in particular, Harold Perrineau. I really look up to Harold. I've been watching him for years as an
mm.
actor, and so when I arrived and I met him, on my first day, I was in awe. I was just like, I can't believe it. It's like a dream come true. And yeah, that was the real highlight of my career, was being able to meet someone of his caliber and to get to work next to him and see his work. And that's
Oh.
just been a real joy.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. I've reached out to Harold's PR and management and everything like that, and I'd love to get him on the show because I think he's incredible. I think he's such a great actor, and he's done such diverse work as well. So fingers crossed,
Yeah,
I get him on the show. But
yeah.
my last question I ask all my guests is, what have you managed to sneak away from set with? Have you kept any mementos? Anything that you thought, do you know what? They're not going to miss this. I'm going to take it as a memento from working on the show.
You know what? We have to wear the same clothes all the time, with very, very little changes. I did get to change out of my uniform. That was a big day for me because that was an incredibly uncomfortable thing to work in. There is nothing that I take from there. I mean, it's all kind of, uh, every now and again we get, swag, um, when we first, go there or when we leave. Um, so there isn't anything in particular, right? Most of the stuff there is pretty kind of grody. It's not
Yeah,
like the
why
set
would you take
pieces
it?
and stuff like
Why
that.
would you take it?
No, 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 no. I don't know. I don't know how I'd explain like a talisman in my bag to customs, right? So I think
Maybe
I
they've
leave
seen the
those for the
show.
people who really
Maybe
need
they've seen
them.
the show and you can explain it,
Maybe.
you know?
Maybe, but I think I will leave them on set where they belong to keep those monsters away. So,
Well, you
you
know
know.
what? There are rumors that when shows are made around this sort of thing, spooky things happen on set. Things may not
Mm.
be. I mean, it's like the films like Exorcist and Poltergeist and films like that. They had reports of things happening. Did anything like that happen on set? Were there any like unusual things that? Wait a second, we're messing about with things that we shouldn't be messing about with.
Um, no, not to me, but you might want to ask some of the other stars who were put in sort of more dire circumstances
Oh,
than I have, like when they were shooting in tunnels and stuff like that.
oh,
Um, the close quarters sort of thing. So,
ooh.
or around the bottle tree.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you may want to try and get some information. I mean, no, I mean, I personally am not really afraid of supernatural things,
Eh, well,
so
I don't know. I don't want to mess about with it. I'm not silly. So I would rather not.
I don't welcome them. I don't welcome them. I sleep well and I keep, a good spirit about me, so I'm good. I'm not looking for any trouble with anybody.
Yeah,
I
let
haven't
them
had
be.
any
Let
hallucinations yet.
let them be,
So,
and they'll be fine. But
yeah.
Angela, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I look forward to watching weekly season 3. I'm not going to binge it. The fact that I've got it
Don't
there
binge.
and
Just
I can watch
enjoy
it
it.
all. I want to join the fans and actually be a fan of this show, which I am, which I think is an incredible show. So congratulations and well done. And I look forward to seeing everything that you do in the future. And maybe we can get you on again for maybe season 4. Who knows? Um,
Who
because
knows?
because the problem with this show is no one's safe. We've obviously seen that,
That is true.
and those sort of
Yes.
shows break my heart because you get connected and you get fond of a character, and they get eaten by a demon. So fingers crossed
Yeah,
you
but with
stay
this
safe.
show, no one is ever truly gone on this show.
Oh, oh,
Well, you've
oh.
already seen that in season
Yeah,
2.
yeah. I
Yeah.
suppose so.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
But thank you so much. Look after yourself. Keep safe, Angela, and hopefully we see you for season 4, and we can get you back on the show.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian, and a big shout out to the friends in Romilly, UK.